Imagine a world teetering on the brink, where the impossible becomes a strategic consideration. In the heart of the Cold War, a plan was conceived not just to strike an enemy, but to do so from the most inhospitable place on Earth, the South Pole. This was the Soviet Union's audacious, and some would say insane, gamble to position nuclear missiles on the frozen continent, aiming directly at the United States. The year is 1962. The world is gripped by the Cuban Missile Crisis, a stark reminder of the nuclear standoff between the US and the USSR. Amidst this high-stakes tension, Soviet strategists, led by figures like Nikita Khrushchev, were constantly seeking an edge, a way to bypass existing American defenses and deliver a devastating blow. The concept was born from a desperate need for strategic parity. The United States possessed a significant advantage with its bomber fleets and nascent intercontinental ballistic missile (ICBM) programs like the Atlas and Titan. Soviet ICBMs, such as the R-7 Semyorka, were powerful but vulnerable and had limited range or required extensive launch preparations. Antarctica, by virtue of its geographical position, presented a unique solution. Unlike launches from the Soviet Union, which could be tracked and intercepted, missiles launched from the South Pole would follow a trajectory over the Antarctic continent and then northwards towards North America. This would drastically reduce warning times for the U.S. The initial proposals emerged in the late 1950s, around the time of the International Geophysical Year, 1957 to 1958. This period saw increased scientific and military interest in Antarctica. The idea was to establish a clandestine military base, disguised as a scientific research station, capable of housing and launching nuclear warheads. The designated site was thought to be near the geographical South Pole itself. The sheer isolation and extreme cold were seen as both a challenge and a potential asset. The Soviet Antarctic program, spearheaded by organizations like the Arctic and Antarctic Research Institute (ARI), had already established a presence with stations like Vostok. The technological hurdles were monumental. Building and maintaining launch facilities in sub-zero temperatures, with winds that could exceed 200 miles per hour, was an unprecedented engineering feat. The missiles themselves, designed for more temperate climates, would require extensive modification to withstand the extreme cold and ice. Specifically, the Soviet ballistic missile programs, under the guidance of chief designers like Sergei Korolev and later Mikhail Yengel, were advanced for their time. However, missiles like the R-12 Dvina or the R-14 Chusovaya, while capable of reaching targets, were not inherently designed for polar conditions. The plan involved transporting components and personnel discreetly. Submarines of the Northern Fleet could potentially have been used for transport, or alternatively, specialized ice-strengthened cargo ships. The secrecy was paramount. Any hint of a military buildup in Antarctica would have triggered immediate international alarm. Furthermore, the logistics of maintaining such a remote base were staggering. Supplying fuel, food, spare parts, and personnel in an environment where temperatures could plummet to -80 degrees Celsius, -112 degrees Fahrenheit, required a level of logistical support never before attempted. The missiles themselves would likely have been modified versions of existing medium-range (MRBM) or intermediate-range (IRBM) ballistic missiles. The goal was to have them ready for rapid deployment, perhaps using mobile launchers or hardened underground silos buried deep within the ice. The proposed warheads would have been tactical nuclear devices, perhaps in the 1 to 2 megaton range. The accuracy required for such a long-range strike from a mobile or improvised platform would have been a significant challenge, potentially necessitating a shoot-and-forget approach with a less precise yield. The project, often referred to internally as Object 90 or codenamed Khalid, Cold, was discussed at the highest levels of the Soviet military and Politburo. Marshals like Rodion Malinovsky, the Minister of Defense, were involved in evaluating its strategic merits and feasibility. However, the plan faced immense internal opposition. Many scientists and military planners recognized the extraordinary risks and astronomical costs. The scientific community, in particular, worried about the potential for international outcry and violation of the Antarctic Treaty. The Antarctic Treaty, signed in 1959 and effective from 1961, declared Antarctica a continent for peace and science, prohibiting military activities. While the Soviets might have intended to operate covertly, any discovery would have been a major diplomatic disaster, potentially leading to sanctions or even military confrontation. By 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis had profoundly reshaped strategic thinking. The near catastrophe underscored the dangers of brinkmanship and the need for more direct communication and arms control. This event likely contributed to a reassessment of the extreme risks associated with such a provocative plan. The sheer cost was another major deterrent. The Soviet economy, while capable of supporting a vast military-industrial complex, was strained. Diverting resources to such an ambitious and high-risk Antarctic venture would have competed with other crucial projects, including the space program and conventional military buildup. Moreover, the reliability of the technology in such an extreme environment was questionable. Even with modifications, the chances of a successful launch, accurate targeting, and detonation upon arrival were statistically low. The complexity of the system, from missile to guidance to warhead, presented too many potential points of failure. Ultimately, the plan was shelved, deemed too impractical, too costly, and too risky by Soviet leadership. While the idea may have been discussed and perhaps even partially researched, it never progressed beyond the conceptual or very early planning stages. No physical infrastructure was ever built in Antarctica for this purpose. The legacy of such proposals, however, is significant. It highlights the extreme lengths to which the Soviet Union was willing to go to gain a strategic advantage during the Cold War. It reveals a mindset that explored even the most audacious and seemingly improbable scenarios. This frozen gambit also underscores the unique geopolitical landscape of Antarctica. The continent, while a symbol of scientific cooperation, also became a stage for strategic consideration, even if only in theoretical plans like this one. The failure of the plan wasn't a sign of weakness, but perhaps of pragmatism. Facing overwhelming logistical, technological, and political obstacles, Soviet leaders likely recognized that resources were better spent on more achievable strategic goals, such as developing ICBMs capable of reaching the US from Soviet territory. The existence of such a plan, however, served as a potent psychological weapon. The mere possibility, whispered in intelligence circles or debated in war rooms, could contribute to the pervasive fear and tension that defined the Cold War era. It's a stark reminder that during the Cold War, the pursuit of security often led to the exploration of strategies that bordered on the fantastical, driven by a deep-seated fear of annihilation and a relentless desire for dominance. The South Pole nuclear missile plan remains a chilling footnote in the annals of Cold War history. A testament to human ingenuity pushed to its limits, and a cautionary tale about the perilous ambitions born from ideological conflict. While the idea of launching missiles from the bottom of the world never materialized, the motivations behind it, the quest for strategic advantage, the fear of the unknown, and the sheer audacity of human ambition, continue to shape global politics and military strategy to this day. What other unthinkable strategies were devised in the shadows of the Cold War? Join us next time as we uncover another secret that could have changed the world.